Jubilee, a celebration of music in Kentucky.
Tonight, from the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington and the Festival of the Bluegrass, Missouri natives by birth, but Mayberry residents by legend, the traditional sounds of the Dillards.
Well, you know, the Dillards are the original Dillards, and we started out together in 1962, and we have Dean Webb on mandolin, we have Doug Dillard on banjo, we have Mitch Jane on bass, and myself, Rodney Dillard, on guitar. That's the four guys that were on the Andy Griffith Show. Of course, we've had different configurations of the Dillards through the years when people would leave and come back, you know. And so that is the group the way it stands now. The old guys are all back together.
This is an old song that Dean and I wrote before we ever left Salem, Missouri. This is many, many years ago. We knew it was going to be a long time before we got back. We were already homesick, and we wrote this song, which everybody else thinks is traditional, which is all right because they think that about us too. This is called The Old Home Place.
It's been 10 long years since I left my home in the hollow where I was born, where the cool fall nights made the wood smoke rise and the fox hunter blew his horn. I fell in love with a girl in the town. I thought that she would be true. I went away to Charlottesville to work in a sawmill crew. What have they done with the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave the plow in the field and look for a job in the town? The girl ran off with somebody else. The taverns took my pay, and now I stand where the old home stood before they took it away. Now the geese fly south and the wind grows cold as I stand here and hang my head. I've lost my love, I've lost my home, and now I wish that I were dead. What have they done with the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave my plow in the field and look for a job in the town? What have they done with the old home place? Why did they tear it down? And why did I leave the plow in the field and look for a job in the town?
Thank you all very much.
Doug and I, Doug being my brother, I being me, started out together. My dad and my mother both played music, and we just grew up with it. It was a natural thing for us. Doug gravitated toward the banjo. My dad actually bought us instruments so he could have some backup, because he's a fiddle player, old-time fiddle player. So we just naturally started playing. One thing led to another. Doug and I got more and more interested in the music. We made a couple of recordings back in the 50s on a local label in St. Louis. It was called K-Arc Records. And I was still in high school when we made these records. And so we first had our taste of what recording and those things were like. Later on, Dean Webb came into the picture because he was friends of a fellow that we had mutual friendship with, Dale Sled. And Dale introduced us to Dean. And in those days, it was hard to find bluegrass players. You had to drive for miles, because you would hear about, well, there's a banjo picker, you know, 300 miles away, and you'd jump in the car and go find him. And that's how we found Dean, being a mandolin player. So Dean and I and Douglas started playing together. I had this idea that I wanted to go somewhere and do something with the music. I was in college at the time. I wasn't happy doing that. And Douglas and I decided that we would just pick up and go to the West Coast, like kids do. Hey, what do you want to do? I don't know, let's go to the West Coast. Dean and Doug and I, and Mitch was a disc jockey in a local radio station in the town that Doug and I are from, Salem, Missouri. And we would go down and hang out when we were kids. And so we became acquainted, became friends that way, and we started doing a lot of picking together. And when we decided to go to Los Angeles, Mitch said, I'll just go with you. So he sold everything he had, and we packed our automobile, which was Dean's '55 Cadillac, and climbed in that thing and headed for Los Angeles with $9.50. We got as far as Oklahoma City from Springfield, Missouri.
We went to California in 1962 in Dean's old Cadillac to see if we could make a living out there. It's not what I would advise the average family who thinks they can play bluegrass to do, because I have a feeling no matter what your luck was, you'd starve to death in Oklahoma City. We actually made it to California, and this is the story of the Dillards' luck. We had a recording contract within a month, and in 2 months we got a job on the Andy Griffith Show. Well, now, you know, Kentucky people, I think, really like the Andy Griffith Show, because that's getting close to home. And Andy was from North Carolina, and the whole set and everybody that was on it were people very much like us. So it got us work, but we had to do something else in between, and we had to get work in clubs, which meant we had to entertain California audiences who had never seen anything like us in their lives. And one of the things that enabled us to do that, this is something Rodney and I did. We thought, why don't we make up a song about moonshine whiskey? Back home, you don't do that. They've got plenty of that. California people, however, moonshine was a romantic thing, like you drink out of a martini glass, you know, all clear and everything. They didn't think about them getting so drunk you'd have to hang out of the grass to lean against the ground. which is more where moonshine's at. Rodney and I knew an old man that made moonshine whiskey, and he made up the tune, and I wrote the words for this, and we changed the name to protect the guilty because he might get arrested back home if he had a song in his own honor. And he had a good business. He made good whiskey, and he always carried a snake with him. Because we're kind of a religious community back there, and people don't drink unless they've been snake bit. And he didn't have to take a chance on it, you know. Like the little town of Bunker down south of us, they only had one old snake, and they just wore it out. I mean, it was gumming people and stuff. So he'd take his snake around, and he'd sell us a bunch of moonshine whiskey. Well, I thought that's kind of funny. They'd get a kick out of hearing about that. And so Rodney and I, the more we got going with this story, the more we added to it, till after the years we told everything about the whole family, everything they did. He had 2 daughters that helped him with the still. What we refer to back home, being kind about it, is big woolly girls. There's an Ozark saying, type of girl, if you lifted up one arm, 2 bats and a whippoorwill would fly out. You kind of understand where the type was. We made up a tune about this old man because he was the only person in Salem that had never gone to jail for making moonshine whiskey. Half of the other people had. I even had a time or two. This old man had never gone to jail. He was very careful, and people respected him. And, you know, it wasn't they didn't know he was making moonshine. Of course, everybody knew. He'd back his truck up to the only store in town every Saturday and load 500-pound sacks of sugar in the back of it. And, you know, they knew he wasn't making fudge up there. At any rate, this song has lasted a long time, and so have we, so have a little damn respect for both of us. This is called Dillards.
Was a good old man who lived below the mill. Dooley had 2 daughters and a 40-gallon still. One gal watched the boiler, the other watched the spout. Mama corked the bottles when old Dooley fetched them out. Dooley slipping up the holler, Dooley trying to make a dollar. Dooley, give me a swaller and a payback someday. Now Dooley was a trader. When into town he'd come, sugar by the bushel and molasses by the drum. Revenuers came for him slipping through the woods, but Dooley kept behind them all and never lost his goods. Dooley slipping up a holler, Dooley trying to make a dollar. Dooley, give me a swaller and a payback someday. The day old Dooley died, women folk looked sorry and the men stood around and cried. Now Dooley's on the mountain, he lies there all alone. They put a jug beside him and a barrel for a stone. Dooley slipping up the holler, Dooley trying to make a dollar. Dooley, give me a swaller and a payback someday. And a payback someday.
Thank you all very much. We're going to do a song for you that this is kind of what the Ozarks are about. Kentucky is one of the most beautiful places I've ever visited in my life. I may just move here. The problem with Missouri, it's getting overcrowded now. Branson was the cause of that. And we were the other cause of it because people would see us and they thought, boy, they must come from a pretty place, so they all moved there. Now we can't even go home anymore. This is a song we wrote about home the way it used to be. It's a song that lasted a lot of years. Joe Stewart, who used to play with Bill Monroe, wrote this, an old fiddle tune, played it for me one night, and both of us were pretty well lashed up. And I wrote the lyrics to it, and this is a fiddle tune of Joe's, and the lyrics are about the whole world round.
Well, I heard my neighbor's rooster crow early in the day. I heard his ex beyond the hill, and now I'm bound away. For some men love the city life, others crave the town, but I'll be bound for the lonesome woods where I can settle down. Fiddle and a bow and the firelights glow, you can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble in mind, go the whole world round. Well, the red squirrel leaves when the gray squirrel comes. The eagle nest alone. 100 miles from a wagon track is where I'll build my home. Fiddle and a bow and the firelights glow, you can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble in mind, go the whole world round. Well, I've seen the omen whittling wood, I've seen the streets of town. I'll pack my goods for the Arkansas woods, and there I'll settle down. Fiddle and a bow and the firelights glow, you can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble in mind, go the whole world round. Fiddle and a bow and the firelights glow, you can hear that lonesome sound. I'll leave behind my trouble in mind and go the whole world round.
We got there, we auditioned in a club at the time, was called the Ash Grove, which was sort of the hub of the folk scene with Baez and all those folks and the political left and da-da-da. And here were these guys from Missouri walking into all of this. And we auditioned one night out in the lobby. We just got out our instruments and started playing in the lobby of this folk club. And the president, the owner of Elektra Records, happened to be there. And a producer who had produced a lot of records for him and different people who later on went to put the Eagles together. His name was Jim Dixon. He was there, and they asked us if we wanted to make a record. So, yeah, okay, we'll do this. Then later on, we signed with the largest agency in the world, which is William Morris. Then they put a blurb in the paper, and within a month, this blurb in the Variety, in Hollywood Variety, said, Rangy Mountain Group signs with Elektra Records and William Morris. Andy Griffith's people saw that, and that's how the Andy Griffith Show came about. We went over there to audition, and we went over to Desilu, auditioned. We got through a song, halfway through a song, and Andy just slapped his legs and says, "That's it. That's what we're looking for."
I thought maybe I would take this time maybe to play a little harmonica, because I know you love the harmonica.
No way. No way. Forget it.
So I've been doing this for fun, and I don't get to play the harmonica a lot. And I got this the other day in Branson as a souvenir. And I thought I would just play just a little tune.
Delph, I'm not crazy, Rod.
I'd like to do something from Cats.
Right.
Rodney,
I mean the real ones.
35 years been trying to pawn that thing off on
know.
groups of
Y'all
people.
don't want to hear him play that, do you?
Oh, Lord. No.
See, they love it. Impeccable taste they have.
You know, that reminds me, Rodney, very much. Can I see that?
Yeah, you
It
can see
reminds
it.
me of an accordion. In the Ozarks, you can always, a gentleman is a person who knows how to play the accordion and doesn't. It's kind of the way with this one.
You know what I'm
Go on. Good for you, Rodney.
Thank you, thank you.
The reason I fell out for a minute, I've suddenly got my hearing aids working. I'm hearing every. Oh, Dillard. Look what you.
One impression of an edsel. Whoa.
Nothing ever.
Whoa. Whoa.
I stuck that in the wrong place. We're going to do you another song that made us probably infamous, trying to make a living picking for all these Hollywood people who had never in the first place ever heard bluegrass before, and second place had never seen anybody like us before. I forgot to mention to you a while ago, when Andy Griffith looked at us, we went down, we were right out of Salem. We'd been watching him the month before on television, and all of a sudden we're standing on the set of the, the jail set, and in the studio at Desilu, and we're all embarrassed and just doing the best we can. And Andy tried to make us all feel comfortable and everything. He said, "You guys, you're perfect for this family that we want you to play." He said, "You look like you had the collective intelligence of a box of tacks." Nicest thing anybody ever said.
But what really got us is that they got us out there and got us on that show and paid us money to do something we'd been doing for free all our lives.
And not having to look a bit different either. But for the rest of the Hollywood people, we had to come up with something. And we made up a song. Well, I'll tell you what happened. We were caught by our own tail those first 2 or 3 years. They had us playing places we'd never been. We were invited to the Newport Folk Festival by mistake. And we got out there and met people like Judy Collins and Bob Dylan and Joan Baez. And we went out to sing, to watch her sing, because she has a beautiful voice anyway, and I'd never got to see her. And she sang a song called "Old Blue" that we had been doing for, as long as we'd been together. But we didn't do it that way. And Rodney looked at me and said, you reckon we've been doing that song wrong? It's real sad, she droned it out and dragged it out to you. I felt sorry for the dog, and I'd seen 3 of them run on in the yard that morning. What we did, Rodney and I figured it out. I said, "Rodney, obviously they do not feel about dogs the way we do in the Ozarks. Possibly because Joan Baez has probably never used a privy. And well, a lot of people nowadays don't even know what a privy is, and I hate that. Because it means I'm in for such an expectation. Well, those little blue things are kind of a privy, only ours were made of wood, and they set up about 50 or 100 yards behind the house, which of course in the wintertime was 100 yards too far. But in the summertime it was way 100 yards too near. You know how privies are. And everybody ran foxhounds and coonhounds back home, and we took it for granted. In the wintertime, a coonhound is not, you know, the very highest level of intelligence out front anyway. He's got one thing on his mind, that's coons. Every now and then he finds that he's tired, and he'll stop wherever he is on anybody's place and lay up in the first place that's out of the wind, which at our house was always the privy, in case you left the door cracked a little bit. And it was, you know, it's Rodney's mother's fault. She put a rug down there to keep the wind from going. And the dogs loved that. And you'd wake up in the middle of the night, cold winter night, you know, maybe freezing rain outside, and you didn't want to go to that privy, but it was, you know, the alternative was worse. But you knew what it was going to be out, like, you know, the ground all froze up slicker than deer guts on a pump handle out there. And you had to make it 100 yards out there to that place. And you'd finally get down there fighting the wind and all, and open the door, and somebody's coon hound was curled up in there, grinning at you, going like you just built the place that morning. And we finally figured it out. If, you know, anybody that's been growled out of their own privy half a dozen times in winter does not sing Old Blue like Joan Baez does. Here's how we do it.
Had an old dog and his name was Blue, and I bet you $5 he's a good dog too. I bred old Blue to a dog named Green, and all the pups were aquamarine.
Rodney, would you sing this straight?
Blue, Blue, you good dog, you. 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 Well, shoulder my axe and toot my horn. Gonna get a possum in the new green corn. Bake that possum good and brown. Lay those sweet taters round and around. Blue, Blue, you good dog, you. 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 When old Blue died, he died so hard, he shook the ground in our backyard. I dug his grave with a silver spade, laid him down with a golden chain. Blue, Blue, you good dog, you. 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 Well, when I get to heaven's first thing I'll do, I'll grab my horn and I call for Blue. Blue, Blue, you good dog, you. 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 Blue, Blue, you good dog, you.
I think that our presentation, of course, on-stage presentation, developed. I think if we'd have gone to Nashville, maybe we would have developed a style. Maybe we were on our way to do that. But we had a lot of help on the way because we didn't have a lot of humor when we first started. We wanted to. We had a lot of humor that was funny to us, but we started developing it. The Smothers were a great influence on us. Tommy, about timing. There was another fellow by the name of David Hamill who used to work with us in these folk clubs, and we'd watch him, and he taught us how to develop our character, and then of course Mitch would start drawing on these stories, and we'd start refining them and finding the punchline. So they just didn't wander on into oblivion, but actually find what you'd call the laugh points and the applause points. And we did this because a lot of the urban people, even though there was a folk music thing going on, bluegrass was a little bit too close to them, to their ancestry, and they didn't really want. They were sophisticated, and so we had to take humor and work humor into the music in order to get them to like the music. So it's like, giving your child castor oil and orange juice. But once they saw that we weren't just that hillbilly humor thing, that they started accepting the music and realizing what it was, and we were able to break trails that no one had done before. So we knew the humor was our survival.
When we went out to California, people were always asking, you guys are from the Ozarks, aren't you? And of course, at that time, they mixed Missouri up with Arkansas, the Ozarks. They didn't know one from another. Now I can tell them we're the one Clinton is not from. I mean, I've got nothing against him. He inspired the movie Free Willy and everything. I like to see any kind of wit come out of Arkansas. We're really happy to be with you tonight. And before I forget it, I've got to thank...
We used to have an old saying up in Missouri about people who've moved from Arkansas to Missouri.
What do they say?
You can always tell somebody who's moved from Arkansas to Missouri because they have scars on their face from learning to eat with a knife and fork.
Aww. Of course, I'd never say anything like that. We're going to do an old-time song we wrote before we ever left Salem called I'll Never See My Home Again. We just about made it, too.
In the hollow where the pines are standing tall, in the shadow where the woods are dark and still, to a warped and weathered shack my thoughts keep turning back, to my old mountain home below the hill. Oh, I left it in the springtime when the flowers were in bloom, and I told folks I'd see them in the fall. But the road keeps stretching onward from the cradle to the tomb, and I guess I'll never see my home at all. I can hear the geese crying in the sky, I can see the dry leaves blowing in the lane. I miss the wood fires on a cold and rainy night, and the trees are scratching at my window pane. Oh, I left it in the springtime when the flowers were in bloom, and I told the folks I'd see them in the fall. But the road keeps stretching onward from the cradle to the tomb, and I guess I'll never see my home at all. As the years go by and seasons pass away, that home place keeps returning to my mind. I'd give a lot to see that place so dear to me, that hollow in the woods I left behind. No, I left it in the springtime when the flowers were in bloom, and I told the folks I'd see them in the fall. But the road keeps stretching onward from the cradle to the tomb, and I guess I'll never see my home at all. Oh, I left it in the springtime when the flowers were in bloom, and I told folks I'd see them in the fall. But the road keeps stretching onward from the cradle to the tomb, and I guess I'll never see my home at all.
Most of the songs the Dillards do, there's a few that we've borrowed, but in the early days, most of the songs we've written. And later on, when we got more into not so much story songs and character songs, but our love songs, Mitch and I wrote a lot of those in later albums. We're doing one tonight, which I like, that we wrote, that was actually nominated for a Grammy a few years ago. It's called The Darlin' Boys. And it's about the Darlin' Boys. And we're proud of that because it was probably the only thing in the last few years that we've written and recorded, actually. Actually did something.
Well, way in the middle of a mountainside where the steeples stand up high, they paid by the gallon when the boys came down, for Mayberry Valley was dry. The Darlin' Boys had traps on the river, and the Darlin' Boys made shine in the night. Nobody did it like the Darlin' Boys when the time of the moon was right. When the time of the moon was right. Oh, the Darlin' Boys, they all dress funny, and the Darlin' Boys, they talk real slow. Nobody did it like the Darlin' Boys when it came to the old banjo. When it came to the old banjo. Well, way in the middle of the mountainside where the red and the gray squirrels play, and the sound of the fiddle when the old man died was to carry the souls away. The Darlin' Boys had traps on the river, and the Darlin' Boys made shine in the night. Nobody did it like the Darlin' Boys when the time of the moon was right. When the time of the moon was right. Oh, the Darlin' Boys, they all dress funny, and the Darlin' Boys, they talk real slow. Nobody did it like the Darlin' Boys when it came to the old banjo. When it came to the old banjo. Oh, the Darlin' Boys, they all talk funny, and the Darlin' Boys, they talk real slow. Nobody did it like the Darlin' Boys when it came to the old banjo. When it came to the old banjo.
I told everybody this afternoon that we first went out to California, they kept putting us in places we didn't really understand. After we got a job on the Andy Griffith Show, we were on a television show, one of the #1 shows, so they figured there's got to be a way to use this. And they sent us all kinds of places where we couldn't play. And one of them was that, well, we did it, but it was kind of rough. We went to the Newport Folk Festival where we met all these famous people in the folk world. And we discovered that we were ourselves folks. And one of the folks we met, Rodney and we were all gathered down there watching them and getting just excited as we could be. Bob Dylan was singing. And Rodney said, I've got to do that song. He said, Rodney, you want to sing like Bob Dylan? He sounds like a dog with his leg caught in barbed wire. He said, no, we're going to do it because nobody's ever done it in bluegrass, and we did it, and we still do it, and it's called Walking Down the Line.
When I'm walking down the line, I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line, my feet will be a-flying to tell about my troubled mind. My money comes and goes, my money comes and goes. My money comes and goes and flows and flows and rolls and flows through the holes in the pockets of my clothes. Well, I'm walking down the line, I'm a-walking down the line. I'm walking down the line, my feet will be a-flying to tell about my troubled mind. I got a heavy-headed gal.
Rodney, do you mind?
I got a heavy-headed gal.
Would you sing this straight?
I got a heavy-headed gal. She ain't a feeling well, but she's better only time will tell.
Mom will probably sue us.
Down the line. I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. My feet will be a-flying to tell about my troubled mind. I see the morning light. I see the morning light. Well, it's not because I'm an early riser. I didn't go to sleep last night. Well, I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. My feet will be a-flying to tell about my troubled mind. Well, I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. My feet will be a-flying to tell about my troubled mind.
For the original Dillards that's working now, pretty much stuck to people. These were about characters from our hometown. There's a song we do called Ebo Walker that was based on a real character who ran. Every town has either a town character. He's either the weird guy who rides the bicycle and never speaks to anyone, or the guy who walks around with a paper sack looking for stuff. You never know what he's looking for, and you don't know what he has in the sack, and you really don't want to find out. But those kind of characters we were always thought were funny, because that's what makes a small town what it is. That's the character of a small town. So we took those people like Ebo Walker and Dooley, who was a real character, the moonshiner. Of course, the name had been changed. And we drew on the humor of the Ozarks, not the blacked out teeth and the funny hats, the Judy Canova humor that Hollywood portrayed, but the humor, not just the broad comedy. And tried to bring that and show that mountain folk also had, mountain people and country people have a certain dignity. And where Hollywood wasn't portraying that. They always portrayed mountain people as dumb, stupid, chasing their sister in the yard, that sort of thing. And we wanted to bring the humor, make fun of ourselves, but let them know that there's intelligent people with integrity and value system in the music and in the country.
After we found out that people like finding out about moonshine, and it got kind of strange, people in California are like other countries. They don't know where we belong, where the Ozarks is. Like, we were over to England last year, and one of these guys asked us how we felt about Civil War. And I said, best I can remember, my grandpa said, didn't matter who won the damn thing, we'd get the moonshine concession anyway. So what we did, we just tried to operate a sort of free form to explain how there are professional drinkers in the Ozarks. They're kind of wine tasters who will taste anything you make and hold it up and check the bouquet and all that kind of stuff and say, well, this is kind of an impertinent little thing, but it don't blast your head off. Right. This is another, Rodney and I, of course, have cooperated on a lot of songs. That's the only thing we ever cooperated on. We live 50 miles apart. We wrote songs together, about 42 of them we figured out one time, over a period of 38 years. And one of them was a song about an old man back home named Ebo Walker, who would drink anything that anybody made. And he was a professional. And people would bring the first runoff from the still to see if it killed him. And if it didn't, then they could sell it to somebody else real quick. And this old man got to the point, his palate was not what it used to be. He'd start off in the morning with things like wind's friction proofing. And work his way down through, and little kids would come up to him on the street. He wore a pretty good name, around town. While he was upright, he spent most of his time laying down. He learned to recognize people by their ankles. But anyway, this old fool, kids would run up, you know, and say, I bet you wouldn't drink this pint of stuff that me and Daddy made up to take the grasshoppers off the tracker windshield, would you? Ebo'd say, hand that here. Real pro, you know, blue, 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 and then down he'd go. Well, at any rate, the reason Rodney and I finally got around to making this song up, the man died, which of course you'll do if you do that enough. But what was neat was he did it in the privy. And that doesn't happen all that often, and a lot of times it won't get read up in the paper. They don't want to embarrass anybody. Ebo Walker died in his privy this morning. You know, they don't print that kind of stuff in little small town papers. He went out there in the back porch, feeling good, cold winter morning, brisk and everything, went out to drink his instant breakfast of Wynn's friction proofing or whatever it was, and wobbled on out to the privy, which you would do. And while he's out there, he died. And he didn't have the fastest family in the world. And his wife, about the second or third day he was gone, she got uneasy about him. And they had 4 or 5 little old pocket Bufords, and she sent one of the Bufords out, what has happened to Daddy? So the kid went out and looked and checked and came back in, and like Ozark kids do, not the Arkansas variety, this is not the Bill Clinton variety, the kind from Missouri tell the truth. Kid came back and said he's out there in a privy, froze up stiffer than a woodpecker's lip. So of course I had to bury him, you know, and it was cold weather and he kept real good, you know, but he was awkward to load. He was all in that sitting position thing.
He just rode up in the front seat of the hearse. Now Ebo Walker, he walked and he fiddled and he fiddled and he walked and he drank till he died. But I've heard tell when the wind's down, moon shines bright and the leaves are brown, you could hear old Ebo fiddling all around. Ebo Walker was a good old man.
We want to thank you all very much for turning out and staying late to see us. And I know we're no better looking than we used to be, but we do it the best we can. And, you know, we're all putting up with the various things that happen when you get spread out like a coon-eyed, different businesses, different towns. One of our great joys is 4 or 5 times a year getting back together and creating this whole silly thing again for you. Thank you so much for liking us.
Good night, Kentucky. Thank you guys very much. God bless you.
Us really getting back out here again. The Dillards! They coming? They'll do a bunch of darlings.
Y'all didn't need to go to all that trouble. We're going to come back anyway.
There is a time for love and laughter. The days will pass like summer storms. The winter winds will follow after. But there is love, and love is warm. There is a time for us to wander, when time is young and so are we. The woods are green and over yonder, the path is new, the world is free. There is a time when leaves are falling, the woods are gray, the paths are old. The snow will come when geese are calling. You need a fire against the cold. There is a time for us to wonder, when time is young and so are we. The woods are greener over yonder, the path is new, the world is free. So do your roaming in the springtime. You'll find your love in the summer sun. The frost will come and bring the harvest, and you can sleep when day is done. There is a time for us to wonder, when time is young and so are we. The woods are green and over yonder, the path is new, the world is free. The path is new, the world is free. Thank you and good night. Thank you very much.
Well,